Hello once again and welcome to the Guitar Show podcast. I'm your host Christian Roebling, and today's special guest is the great Brazilian guitarist Carlos Barbosa-Lima. This is episode number 6 in our series, and it was recorded on March 23rd, 1985. Carlos was born in São Paulo, Brazil on December 17th, 1944. Carlos appeared on the Guitar Show twice, here in 1985 and then again in 1989 on episode 34. So keep an ear out for this one in the future. The thing that we have tried to do with the Guitar Show series is to include all styles of guitar playing: rock, blues, jazz, classical, Brazilian, and in some categories that are hard to define. We have nearly 70 episodes to present to you, so do subscribe to our channel so you don't miss anything. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you Carlos Barbosa-Lima.
Hello and welcome to another very special guitar show. My first guest is Carlos Barbosa-Lima. He's been playing guitar since the age of 6 in his home outside of São Paulo, Brazil. His style ranges from the classics to contemporary music. Some of the people that he has interpreted have been Gershwin, Scott Joplin, Antonio Carlos Jobim, Scarlatti, Debussy, Cole Porter, and Louis Bonfa, some of which can be heard on his recent released albums on the Concord Records. The guitar literally becomes an orchestra in his hands, and I'd like to welcome him to the show. Welcome, Carlos.
Thank you very much.
Carlos, who were some of your first influences in playing the guitar?
Well, there were several influences at first. I should say that the guitar is a very strong part of the Brazilian culture. So when I was very young, as a child, I heard the Brazilian guitarists, Luis Bonfa, for instance. He was very active there in the radio, television there, and then Laurindo Almeida. And more or less simultaneously, I started getting tremendous impact from the first LPs that arrived of Segovia down there. So it was a combination of influences, and as well as other musical influences, I should say. No?
Yes. Do you look for other influences other than guitar players?
Oh yes, I have mostly my life listened to records other than guitar records, really. Primarily orchestral records and all kinds of ensemble music, you know. Not only classical, but also jazz, and which I like very much. But the different styles of music, but of good music. Yeah.
You mentioned Joe Pass was one of your favorite guitar players, speaking of one of your guitar players that you do like. Yes. What do you think of the contemporary guitar players, and who are some of your current favorites?
Well, I see the guitar now as a favorite instrument in the whole continent of the Americas, you know, and here in the United States, you can see it really became such a fantastic, important part in jazz, you know. I would say that there are several guitarists that I admire, for instance, in the classical field, like Julian Bream, you know. I think, without mentioning Segovia, I mean, he's already even our concurse, you know. But Bream, I should say, and then I would mention in the United States, Joe Pass, you know, and my good friend Charlie Bird also. And I have heard some other good talents lately. People, you know, like Larry Coryell, people like Jim Hall, another marvelous player, Tal Farlow. And I think the jazz guitar has tremendous achievements in this country.
You've mentioned that you have played with Charlie Bird in his club in Washington. What's it like to play with Charlie?
It's a marvelous experience because I was encouraged to do that a couple of years ago. I have known him since one of my first trips to the United States. I started coming here in the late 60s actually, and then made my headquarters here. But I was encouraged to do this, and we did a few performances in his club in Washington, D.C. He would play with his group and I would play by myself, and then we would join. It's a great pleasure to do because he's a musician who crosses also different styles, including the Brazilian. He was the first big influence of the bossa nova in the United States when he cut that record with Stan Getz. No?
Your musical style is so diverse, from Debussy to Cole Porter and Scott Joplin. What attracts you to, say, Scott Joplin?
I would say that the first part of your question, you know, I think it was the way I was brought up. Maybe my family had a kind of exposure to all kinds of music. I say that diversify the taste was always in myself, and as well as the classical Baroque. I like Bach very much too, you know. So anyway, I should say that the music of Scott Joplin attracted my attention when the film The Sting came out. But I'll tell you something, much before that I heard some of his music back there in Brazil, because there were record collectors, people who were interested in American music. Now, I developed this interest, and I had this idea in my head for a long time to do some sort of elaboration, some arrangements of good music like Gershwin, Scott Joplin, and other authors like Cole Porter, and many others on my plans. So anyway, the music of Joplin just fits the guitar fantastically well, but it was a challenge to transcribe, because I had to integrate many styles there together, technically and musically too, because I had to recreate that to make it sound fresh in the guitar.
One of your fascinations is transcribing music. When did you begin transcribing music, and do you like the challenge of it?
Oh, very much. You know, I was in my very early teens, I was already listening to music that I would imagine this would sound so beautiful on the guitar. And then I was encouraged by my first music teachers to experiment on transcription. So I started doing then, I think I was only 13 or 14 when I did my first transcriptions from other mediums to the guitar. And I have not stopped since. That has become quite an important part in my life. And I feel great satisfaction, because it's like recreating the music in a new medium and adding a touch of my own, and then because this concept of the guitar is a real polyphonic instrument, and you have great, beautiful music that can be adapted, you know, especially with new technical possibilities developed lately. I would say that it's an art that I penetrated myself more and more in recent years, has taken maybe 80–90% of my attention. My recent recordings are all arrangements that I have done, the future ones too, you know.
Mm-hmm. You're also a teacher, and you teach here in New York City?
Yes, I am on the faculty of Manhattan School of Music, and I like to teach, and I have some fine students, some of them even coming from other countries. Yeah.
What are the questions that the students ask most, or what are the problems of the technique that you try to help them with?
I find in general is the problem of schooling. You know, they come with, of course, under an audition, and I see when people have good conditions, because that's what the school also seeks, to have good students. But anyway, I see sometimes talented people, but they had a certain schooling either too rigid or not a quite right foundation. Sometimes I'm very frank to say, you are playing relatively well, but you might stop where you are. If you are patient enough to do a little comeback, and then be patient for a few months, and then you are going to go much further. Many students take that advice of mine. And then technically, of course, I try to transmit an idea of a school that is in the meantime giving a good foundation, but also being flexible. That's my principle, because then can apply to any style, or even style simultaneously. That's my big work in terms of the instrument possibilities. Now, the other point, which is very important, is the musical point, because that's what drives everything, and I'm very insistent on that. You know.
Does your music, with your technique and all that you've studied, does it allow for improvisation? Do you use improvisation a lot?
Sure, that's the way I started, you know, in my early years. Actually, that was really my start on the guitar. Was a combination of improvising and learning under a more formal training. Actually, after about 2 years of studying, from 6 until about 8 or 9, I was not really under that formal training. But after I met my principal teacher, Savio, in Brazil, then I was put under a very good discipline, which combined very, but I still think the improvisation is so good, because it frees your creativity. And in my arrangements, I think the first idea sometimes comes under an improvisational attitude. And there is another advantage. If you are performing and you know how to do that, you know, you are human. Sometimes your mind just gets a block, you know. You really find your way out, nobody will notice, and you do it in a musical way too. Because you get to know where the music goes. There is a certain logic, you know, in any good music. I think a combination of that and the work of the craftsman. I like that idea very much.
So you continue to learn even though you are a teacher yourself?
Oh, yeah, I'm learning all the time. I'm discovering new things, and I did about a few times in my life even reviewing my whole concept in the instrument. Sometimes even going back to answers I had at a very early age, but of course with another experience now. But I think I'm learning all the time. It's amazing, and if you keep that attitude, I think it doesn't stop like that. You define a style, that's another thing. A style that can be shaped, that can be improved, but I think I'm discovering, even yesterday I was kind of discovering new sounds by trying certain pieces, it's really constant motion. I say that music is an art that is in constant motion, it's not static. Mm-hmm. And some people make such a mistake by making everything like this is it. It's learned and now it's done. It's never like that in arts,
As far as practicing, do you practice every day?
I try to, sometimes I give a little bit of a rest because I am under sometimes a heavy concert schedule. It's important to rest too, but I go definitely, For instance, it's important no matter how you know the instrument. You have to go over, not only to firm what you have learned, but to find new things. Mm-hmm. I don't put, let's say, too many hours, but I think I put from 3, 4, sometimes 5 hours of good practice, and I enjoy doing that. Mm-hmm. I'm not counting the time I'm on the guitar experimenting or playing for my friends. That's a different.
I see.
So if I add that, then...
So it's like 8 hours.
It could be even more than that.
What kind of guitar do you play now? This is a beautiful instrument.
Oh, it's gorgeous. This is an American-made guitar. Mm-hmm. Actually, in New York City, it's a Thomas Humphrey guitar. Mm-hmm. It's a beautiful, very sound instrument. It responds to the player. That's very important. As well as a good recording instrument.
Mm-hmm. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
You are listening to the Guitar Show podcast today with our very special guest, Carlos Barbosa-Lima. We have 70 episodes to present to you, so please keep listening. And future classical guitar episodes will include Sharon Isbin and Benjamin Verdery. For a complete list of shows, go to frontrowmusic.com. Clips from the Guitar Show series can be seen on our YouTube site at the Guitar Show series. And do subscribe to our channel here. It doesn't cost anything. And if you happen to wish to see full videos of the Guitar Show, they are available at our Vimeo site, the Guitar Show series or Christian Roebling Productions. And now back to our very special guest, Carlos Barbosa-Lima.
technique is very important in what you do. What are the nuances and things that you look for in your technique to make you play the style that you do play?
Yes, I think the technique is very important medium, but towards the major goal, which is the music making, you know. That is a philosophy. Now, in terms of the mechanics itself, you know, it's important. There are certain things that adapt a little bit differently to each player, but I think, you know, it's important to have a good basis, a good foundation, especially to look for nuances, the beauty of tone, the depth of a phrasing, and then you want a certain sonorous effect here and there to enhance a certain phrase. So the technique has to be, in my opinion, effortless in terms of minimizing the tension that you put, the muscular tension, but you need to save, because the muscular tension has to exist positively and then be positively used. You know, I see so many people, sometimes very gifted, but they waste so much time. Sometimes they repeat a certain passage. It's no good. Stop and think why that's not working. You analyze, sometimes there is a certain movement, there a certain fingering that cannot work. Mm-hmm. You know, I look for the nuances, experimenting different tone colors, because that's beautiful on the guitar. If you contrast the sonority, you can also apply to different voices, and then that illusion of a little ensemble begins to exist. You know, and not only that, the beauty of tone has to have a communication to the listener too. You see, and the person has to be able, the player has to be able to listen. That's the most important thing in music, is to listen. You know, and go to the nuance and the subtleties and sure.
We're going to be lucky enough to see some of his wonderful techniques. Carlos, what are you going to do for us today?
Well, I'm going to show a few possibilities. I mean, this is such a universe of possibilities. So I will show some samples maybe of different styles of pieces. For instance, you have an eminently classical Baroque piece like in Handel, you know, Minuet, for instance, in the middle, you know, you can identify two voices going on simultaneously. While I play the bass line and an upper voice going like that. And then I can show you in a more impressionistic piece like Siciliano or Fauré, the harmonic sound integrating with the non-harmonic sound, for instance. You see, and then you can move on to other styles like Gershwin. You have a combination of a jazz, little touch, you know, and a bass line going on simultaneously, like. See what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you can have, in the meantime, the fingers firmer, but the other is doing. This is my combination of two styles. Yeah. Now I'm going to show you, for instance, in the Brazilian music, bass line, obstinato as I call, going on simultaneously. Yet the upper voice is doing completely other, actually more than one rhythm. You know, like. You see, also the left hand opens and closes. You know, that enables you to do a lot more. You know, this is another style that I think I entered in a very early age too. Instead of just moving this way, sometimes you can move, you see, legato is possible. And then you have different tone colors, like, you know, let's say a D major chord, you know. For instance, another sound. Completely different tone quality, you know. And then you can have, for instance, rasgueado, like you have in flamenco music. You know, and then you have in the Brazilian style, you know, different rhythms, tambora, like percussion, you know.
How about Scott Joplin? Is he very difficult to play?
Oh yes, I had to actually develop a whole concept about how to put together on the guitar solo. It is because you have a bass line, you have rhythms going in syncopation, and sometimes you have a middle voice, really 4 voices going on simultaneously. So instead of the traditional concept of the harmonic sound just being a separate entity, I kind of integrated that, and sometimes simultaneously with a bass line or in syncopation, like for instance. You see, this is a D major chord. Now, see if I give a special color, like. Another thing I would like to mention too, the left hand. I still find this amazing. Still, 80-90% of people still play. It's unbelievable, I mean, even when I was very young, I was not doing that by intuition at first,
So lifting of your left hand doesn't get that sliding sound.
Not only that, you have to be able to prepare. Look, two different chords. For instance, this one. By the time I fall, I have this ready. But it's in between that I do my accommodation. Now, if you need to slide, you can do. See, fine. But I use a little different motion left hand, not. You see, like too much. I find that can be used effectively, actually, can do... You can use that, then squeak has a purpose,
That's marvelous.
Yeah, like the snare drums.
That's great. Final question, Carlos. What does the guitar mean to you, and what has it done for you?
Well, it has been my life, really. I'm very happy. If I would start over again, I would be even with more conviction, because it has meant very much. Because I started, I can barely remember because I was so young, about 6 years of age. And it has meant a good attachment to my life, companion to so many moments and friendship and personal satisfaction, and also a motif, a reason for the future, to look into something that I find, it's an instrument so portable, so personal, and I can, and it has meant a lot to my life, and I see that I can do for it as it is also doing a lot for me too. It's a mutual relationship, really.
Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show here today.
Thank
and
you.
The instrument does become an orchestra in your hands.
Thanks very much.
And thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You've been listening to the Guitar Show podcast with our very special guest today, Carlos Barbosa-Lima. If you haven't listened to our previous podcasts, do go listen. Our first podcast guest was Les Paul, then Rick Derringer, then jazz great Larry Coryell, Phil and Dave Alvin from the Blasters, and jazz guitar legend Tal Farlow. So keep listening and subscribe to our channel. It's free. You can't beat that. Our next podcast will feature jazz guitarist John Abercrombie. And remember, Carlos will be heard on episode 34, so don't forget to tune in. For a complete list of shows, go to frontrowmusic.com, and clips from the Guitar Show can be seen on our YouTube site at the Guitar Show series. If you happen to wish to see full episodes of the Guitar Show videos, they're available on our Vimeo site, the Guitar Show series or Christian Roebling Productions. Carlos passed away in Brazil at the age of 77 on February 23rd, 2022, and he left behind an amazing catalog of work. We will end this podcast with a wonderful song by our very special guest today, Carlos Barbosa-Lima. Thank you for listening, and until next time.